Hi, I'm Amanda Gillies, and today on The Detail, scandal after scandal has rocked New Zealand police.
The police commissioner is facing one of the biggest challenges of his tenure, with allegations of complaints of a sexual nature now the focus of 2 investigations.
My initial thoughts were, honestly, it couldn't be right. And then I thought, not another one, not again.
The allegations come less than a year after the fallout from the Jevon McSkimming case.
Former Deputy Police Commissioner Jevon McSkimming has admitted possessing child sexual exploitation and bestiality material on his work devices.
A man who spent his days fighting crime and his nights wallowing in it. Absolutely vile. And here's the kicker. They knew. The system knew.
Police have been under the pump quite a bit recently, and there's been a few things go wrong. Confidence and trust for some people is waning.
Yet, just a few months ago, the police commissioner promised to sort out the corruption, the cover-ups and the bad behaviour.
Richard Chambers promised greater transparency around police conduct.
We all want to ensure this never happens again, and that is why I've moved very quickly to put things in place to ensure that this never happens again.
But now he's under investigation with complaints relating to his conduct towards women. He strongly denies the allegations and remains in the top job. And at the same time, more and more officers are making headlines with allegations of committing indecent crimes and giving favours to criminal family members in court.
2 Auckland police officers have appeared in court today, charged with possessing objectionable material.
That was last week, now this week.
2 former police officers are standing trial in Auckland, accused of perverting the course of justice, leading to a wrongful murder conviction.
And then there's the fallout after a top cop announced last month he's joining the Labour Party.
One of Labour's new candidates has earned the ire of the police commissioner after failing to flag early enough that he intended to run for Parliament.
From the top brass to officers on the beat, a string of scandals is putting New Zealand police in the spotlight. To find out what's really going on and whether the good cops can rebuild trust again, today I talked to the country's top crime correspondent Sam Sherwood, who has covered every big scandal and story in detail for RNZ. And I also sit down with former police negotiator Lance Burdett.
My first reaction was, oh no, another one, another commissioner.
Do you think there are a few more nervous officers in the force at the moment just waiting for their day in court?
Well, I'd be naive to think no.
More from Lance in a moment, but first, Sam and the allegations against the police commissioner.
Well, Amanda, I'll just take you back just a little bit. I went to the Commissioner's office as well as the Police Minister Mark Mitchell's office a couple of weeks ago after hearing that concerns had been raised about the Commissioner. Now, it wasn't until Thursday last week that we actually received a statement from Deputy Police Commissioner Mike Pennant, and in that statement he confirmed that complaints relating to the Commissioner were being investigated by both police and the Independent Police Conduct Authority. We then got a statement from the Commissioner himself in which he strongly rejected the claims that had been made and said he would cooperate fully with the investigation and look forward to having the whole matter dealt with. Now, in terms of the allegations themselves, neither the IPCA or police will comment on the nature of those allegations. But what we do understand is that one of the complaints that has been made is from a former police staffer who made allegations about the Commissioner's conduct towards women. I understand that this former staffer wrote a letter to the Minister of Police in November outlining these allegations, and it's understood that the other complaint is from a woman Mr. Chambers dated more than 2 decades ago. Now, as part of the investigation into her complaint, staff from Police's National Integrity Unit have actually visited her in Australia. It's understood that this allegation is historical and that at this time, none of the allegations that have been raised have actually been substantiated.
I find it interesting, Sam, because he is our top cop, and when he came in, it was all about truth and transparency and regaining trust.
It is fundamentally important that the police have the trust and confidence of the public, and we've got some work to do at the moment.
Yet there are these allegations, and he's still in the top job. Why hasn't he been stood down?
Well, in his note to staff last week, the Commissioner said he'd been advised it was not necessary to take leave at this point. I'll quote him just briefly. He said, "I will continue to turn up to work and do my job." Now, I did put that question to the Public Service Commission. I asked if it was appropriate that the Commissioner remained in his role while the investigation was ongoing. A spokesperson for the Public Service Commissioner said that based on the information available, the Commissioner, Sir Brian Roach, did not consider that that was required at this time.
Find it interesting. The Prime Minister this week was grilled on it.
Yeah, look, I'm well aware of the complaints. It's now being investigated, as you know, by the IPCA and also police. I'm not actually going to comment too much on that. I don't think it's appropriate for me or any minister, frankly, to be involved with it at this point in time.
Well, your police minister has said that it has fully endorsed Richard Chambers. Do you
yes,
support him making those
I do
comments
support him, but there's a process going on at the moment where an investigation's underway, and it's entirely appropriate we let that run its course.
So just to be clear, you have confidence in
Yes, I do.
Richard Chambers?
What about, though, the police minister? How has he responded? Because I honestly, Sam, I feel like we've barely heard from him on this.
Yeah, so he released a statement last week to me when we did the initial story, and he said that he was aware of these complaints that had been received about the police commissioner, and he said how they're now being investigated by police and the IPCA. Now, I also did get an OAA back from his office in which he said he received 2 complaints relating to the commissioner. Now, the first was in November last year, and then the second was in February this year. Both of those complaints were referred to the IPCA as well as the National Integrity Unit. And at this stage, he's saying he simply can't comment any further while the investigation's ongoing.
But the police minister did talk briefly to One News about the police commissioner.
I think he's an outstanding police commissioner. He's doing a very good job for us. Police officers attract complaints. We have the IPCA.
Just to also point out, we did also reveal at the weekend that it wasn't just Mark Mitchell that was receiving these complaints. Labour's police spokeswoman and former police minister Ginny Anderson also received the same email that the minister got in November last year from the former police staffer. She referred this to Mitchell's office with the understanding that this would then be referred on to the IPCA and Professional Conduct Group.
And I can only imagine all the journalists are saying, hey, why haven't we heard about this earlier? Why weren't we told in November? And I'm assuming there's been no response to that?
Yeah, no response at this stage. I suspect that will be to say, in terms of due process and making sure the investigation weren't compromised, presumably. But at this stage, we don't know why it took from November to last week for this to come to light.
And obviously, as I mentioned, Chambers was so big on, look, I'm going to crack down on this bad policing and this bad behaviour. Was he actually doing that before these allegations were made?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that when Richard Chambers took over as Commissioner, the first year was troubling for him in terms of all the... I spoke to him late last year and he was talking about all the fires he had to put out. And when Jevan McSkimming resigned last year, the Commissioner immediately launched this rapid review of police's information security controls. That was obviously after it was revealed that objectionable material had been found on McSkimming's devices. Then there was obviously in November, there was the scathing IPCA report.
It's a sad and dark day for New Zealand Police. That's Police Commissioner Richard Chambers on the scathing report into senior officers' handling of the Jevan McSkimming investigation.
This is not a scandal. This is not a scandal. It is a full-force meltdown. And it's time for the badge to face the music.
And following that, the Commissioner made a whole raft of changes, including a refresh of the police executive as well as the wider leadership. He also announced that he was going to be revising the police code of conduct, which he said was aimed at strengthening accountability. And there was an abundance of recommendations really in the IPCA report, but he also decided to immediately uplift the number of staff in the National Integrity Unit, adding a further 6 investigators as well.
Now, obviously, I think it was last week we had 2 cops before the courts for accessing objectionable material. Is all that part of the fallout of the Jevan McSkimming case? Talk me through that.
Yes, so as I just mentioned before, the Commissioner did launch this rapid review. Now, that rapid review, as a result of that, 3 police officers were charged with possessing objectionable publications. 2 of those staff are from Auckland, and the 3rd is from Wellington.
In the middle of all this, Sam, top cop Rakesh Naidu, he then announces he's joining Labour.
The police minister is now accusing the superintendent of failing to act in a respectful and transparent manner and is raising concerns about his recent access to sensitive briefings.
Was he representing the police, or has he been representing the Labor Party for the last few months? And it is extremely disrespectful to the Commissioner. And when you talk about integrity, we've just had to deal with a whole lot of integrity issues within police that we inherited, then I would have thought there'd be a really sharp focus on making sure that things were done respectfully and things were done right.
All
and
right.
In this case, it's very clear they weren't.
How surprising was this, and what's been the fallout, I guess, of that announcement?
I think it's fair to say the announcement did take police by surprise, and as they've said publicly, they expected more of a heads up from Rakesh Naidu. When it was announced that he was going to be standing, the Commissioner did say that Mr Naidu's role in police was now untenable, and they should have told him earlier of his political intentions. And he also referred to the police manual, which said that someone of Naidu's rank had to inform the Commissioner of this. He also then announced a review would be undertaken over the period during which Naidu was engaging with the Labour Party prior to him advising police of his intentions. Now, that review, which is still ongoing, will include meetings that Naidu was involved in as a senior police leader, the information he was privy to by virtue of his position, and whether anything was shared with any third party that should not have been shared. Now, the Commissioner, when he was announcing this, he said that as a senior police officer, Naidu was privy to sensitive information and that the Commissioner needed to be reassured of information that he had been privy to through the course of those duties had been handled properly.
You are a crime reporter. You're the country's top crime reporter. Do you feel you're doing more stories now on police who are committing crimes than your standard, perhaps, criminals?
I think the last year and a bit has been quite top-heavy in terms of the genuine public interest elements of police reporting. Obviously, we had Jevan McSkimming, and then also last year there was issues in terms of police being under investigation for falsifying breath tests. And of course, then we had the staff charged with allegedly objectionable publications. I think it's just been a wave of those sort of things popping up quite frequently in the last year or so.
So how does the police force recover from this?
It's about continuing the process that they're going through at the moment. It's going to be tough. It'll be a hard pill for some to swallow, but it needs to happen. And at the end of this, keep moving forward like the way they are, keep being transparent, holding officers, holding colleagues to account. You're going to end up with a world-leading police organisation.
Do you think there are a few more nervous officers in the force at the moment just waiting for their day in court?
Well, I'd be naive to think no.
That's Lance Burdett, a former senior investigator and lead crisis negotiator with the police. I actually started our chat by asking him for his initial reaction to the allegations against Chambers.
Yeah, look, it's one of a number of things that have happened recently with police, and because they've all come close together, my first reaction was, oh no, another one, another commissioner. And then putting it into perspective and looking at it from an investigator's viewpoint, you can see how all of these have lined up to make us feel like there's something wrong with police, and there's not.
And that's, I guess, the big question, public trust in police. Can we trust them? Are they doing a good job? And listening then, you say, yes, they are.
Yeah, well, according to the very latest, like transparency, we are a global leader. We're also very, very high in confidence levels still, despite this, according to the latest research. There's a number of things that have happened recently. So if we take a step right back to the last 12 months, we've had a series of events that have happened that if you take each one individually, you think the system's working. If you take them together, you think the system's failing.
Why do you say it's working? Is that because they are cracking down on the bad cops, weeding them out?
Bad cops. You're throwing me there. Police aren't bad, right? So you don't join the police to become bad or to be bad. There is quite a rigorous process you have to go through. There's something that sticks in my mind, Amanda, when I first joined police. The sergeant at Police College welcomed us all and said, congratulations, you're in the top percentile of the country. You've been scrutinised and you're here. It's taken you your entire life to get here, and we're going to spend the rest of our careers trying to get rid of you. And it just floored me. I was like, well, that's day one. Awesome. But what he was saying is you're going to be under the spotlight for the rest of your career, not just from the public, from police internally, from everyone. You have to be above board. And what he was doing was setting the scene. And that's been true my whole career. I'm not one who hasn't been investigated. I mean, I used to investigate police officers, and somebody put a complaint in about my investigation of the police officers. They complained about me, so I was investigated as an investigator of investigating cops. It's just people's reaction. So emotion moves faster than information. And that's something that sticks in my head. When emotion is involved, information doesn't matter, does it? You have to be 24/7 above board, and rightfully so, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, because their job is to uphold the law and protect us. So they, I think rightly should be held to a higher regard because that is their job.
Absolutely. And that's why there's always 2 or 3 investigations into a single incident. And they are impartial, right? So people say, oh, the IPCA is not independent. It is. It's completely independent. And then we now have the integrity unit, and we have a few others. If it is a murder, there's the coroners involved. All of these are separate investigations. And again, rightfully so, to make sure that we can have confidence in police. And I can tell you right now, what's happening is a series of things that have happened that make us think that things aren't right. What it is actually the system is working. And this commissioner is the one that really put the blowtorch on.
But I look at him, right? This commissioner came out a year ago, 2 years ago, and said, we are going to crack down on bad policing and behaviour. We're going to be truthful and transparency. These allegations came out last November. Do you think they're being transparent by holding on to them until June of this year?
So when anyone makes a complaint to the IPCA, let's take away the role and put the person in there. So there's a person who there's an accusation being made. Now, yes, they are at a high level and a huge amount of accountability required. However, in those situations when an investigation, when it's reported, a complaint is made, we don't go any other investigation and say to the world, oh, this person's... You think of an employment investigation, because that's essentially what it would have been, an employment investigation plus the criminal investigation. You keep it quiet. And the idea of that is so that you can gather evidence before evidence is lost. That's the reason why investigations in their initial stages, loose lips sink ships. Everyone's quiet about it. And they gather as much information as they can for that particular situation. Then and only then, when there seems like there's something, that information is released. And in this case, probably the same for any other criminal investigation. Are there other complaints out there? And that's kind of what this is about. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. But even if he is cleared in this, Lance, if it comes out on the investigation, they say, no, you're okay. Has too much damage been done to him, being the top cop and facing these kind of allegations in the current climate?
I think anyone else, yes. Richard Chambers, no.
Why?
I've known him his whole career. He's a special man. He's a special person. This commissioner has something about him that's very, very different to other commissioners. He has the strongest character of any other commissioner I've ever known. He has a high bar of accountability, and he expects the same on himself.
Yeah. Do you think, though, with more and more cops finding themselves before courts on the wrong side, Lance, do you think that they could be leaking information now? If they're thinking, well, if I'm going down, I'm taking the rest of you buggers with me.
That's very unusual. That would be unusual, but not unheard of. Yeah, there can be some bounce back effect. We do have in this country a tall poppy syndrome, which again is a positive, right? Holding people to account. So no matter what the reason is for the information coming out, it needs to come out. Nothing good happens in the dark, Amanda. So the fact that all this stuff has been brought to light all at once, for me, is a positive, right? It says to the world, this is who we are. We are going to weed out corruption, if that's what it is.
In this past week alone, Lance, this is what we've had. We've had officers before the court for accessing objectionable material. We've obviously had our police commissioner and his allegations, so we're going from the top up there. A police officer allowed his criminal son to access a police-only area so he could exit the court and avoid media. We've obviously got this week 2 cops are on trial for perverting the course of justice. I mean, it's not a good look. Would it be one of the sort of biggest crises facing the police force in recent history, and can they get past it?
To answer your last question, yes, they can get past it, 100%. There will always be people out there who will criticise and say we have the most corrupt police in the world. Well, the research doesn't prove that. The surveys don't prove that. We have a police at the moment who are stretched. They are going through a number of changes within the organisation. They've had a number of kicks fairly recently. Morale for some officers is low, for other officers is high. They are saying, great, this needed to happen a while ago. But what it means is the organisation's going to go through a regrowth, and we will come out of this much better than we are now. Whether it needed to go through that, I would doubt that's the case. It's just because, Amanda, it's all happened in such a short time frame. You know, when I was in the police, there were a number of these. We aren't at the stage where Australia got to, which resulted in the CCC, the CCC, the Crime and Corruption Commission, which runs over there. We aren't at that stage. So that says a good thing.
And for those good cops, because boy, Lance, there are a lot of amazing police officers out there. How tough is this sort of spotlight on the force? How tough is it for them?
Yeah, it does knock you around, right? So I was in the police when the sexual crimes of the 80s came to the fore, and 4 officers were rightly held to account, and I think 2 or 3 of them ended up going to prison.
Former cop and convicted rapist Brad Shipton was acquitted of raping Louise Nicholas in 2006.
However, he was earlier found guilty of taking part in the pack rape of another woman in Mount Maunganui in the 80s and was jailed for that.
You turn up at a job and, I turned up at one job only once, but it sticks in my mind. Oh, great, the rapists are here. That's tough. That's tough to take. You want to react, and you just got to be professional and move on from that. But what it also does is sharpen you, and it makes you think, right, what is going on? I never honestly saw anything that I would call corruption. I'd never met a police officer who openly or secretly was there for corruption. They were there to do a great job, and they do. Good officers are there doing a good job, and they need to be supported.
That's it for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Sam Sherwood and Lance Burdett. This episode was produced by Gwen McClure and engineered by Jeremy Veal. I'm Amanda Gillies. Mā te wā.